Philippians 2 has very strong themes of humility, putting others above oneself. Paul writes to the church in Philippi to encourage their empathy and willingness to put others before themselves. Verses 5 to 7 read, "And your relationship with one another have the same mindset as Jesus Christ, who being in very nature God, did not consider himself equal with God, something he used to his advantage. Rather, he made himself nothing by taking the very nature of a servant." Paul challenges the Philippians to live like Jesus, a tough task admittedly. In verses 2 to 3 he says, "Make my joy complete by being like-minded, having the same love, being one in spirit and one of mind." Paul urges the church to be united in their way of life and work together to aid each other and spread the gospel. He continues by asking the Philippians to be servant leaders. Verses 3 and 4 read, "Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, value others above yourself." Paul wants the church to work for each other and be willing to humble oneself to aid another. Paul wants the church to be servant leaders like Jesus Christ. Jesus washed the feet of his disciples, something a task servants usually did for their masters. In doing so, Jesus humbled himself, even as the Son of God, to show what leadership really means. It means getting down and getting your hands dirty to help others. As Christians, we should do the same. Not only does it help spread the gospel, but it shows others who might be non-believers what Jesus really was like and what Christians are like. Servant leadership does require humility, though. In order to perform basic servantly tasks for one another, it requires, as Paul said, humility to value others more than yourself. Paul continues in encouraging the Philippians to be servant leaders. "Do everything without grumbling or arguing, so that you may become blameless and pure, children of God without fault in a warped and crooked generation. Then you will shine among them like stars in the sky." Philippians 2 verses 14 to 15. Paul's letter continues, but rather to defer the church in Philippi from becoming ungrateful and discontent. Paul wants the church to be willing servants. He sees the value in being hard workers that work to help others. Paul knows that the willingness to help others and put others before oneself shows character, and notes how that character really shines in a person. The willingness to be a servant leader sets one apart. It shows who really is willing to help others and humble themselves doing so. Paul wants the church to be different so that non-Christians could see the character of the Christians and set an example for people to follow. Paul also shares of Epaphroditus, a Christian who fell ill while spreading the gospel. "Therefore I am eager to send him, so that when you see him again, you may be glad, and I may have less anxiety. So then welcome him in the Lord with great joy, and honor people like him, because he almost died for the work of Christ. He risked his life to make up for the help you yourselves could not give." Philippians 2 verses 28 to 30. Paul ends his letter by sharing news of who he describes as his brother, co-worker, and soldier Epaphroditus, who fell ill while spreading the gospel. Paul explains how God had mercy on him and restored his health. Paul wanted to share an example to the people of Philippi of how an ordinary person could put others above himself and risk his life to spread the good news. Paul explains how God will provide for his followers while explaining Epaphroditus' healing and how Epaphroditus immediately thought of others before himself. And Paul wanted to share that with Philippians. Epaphroditus could even be an example for us today. Many of us get caught up in our lives and spend a few thoughts on others, but the story of Epaphroditus could help us learn to put others before ourselves. Epaphroditus is a living example of how God provides for his followers and those who do his work.